Hey everyone, this is Cyber Defenders, and we have OceanLotus, a difficult malware analysis lab by Cyber Defenders. Let's read the scenario while the lab initiates. A spear-phishing attack has hit your organization's mail server. An unusual traffic alert from an endpoint helped to detect this breach. We have acquired a memory dump from the endpoint, and your task is to investigate it. Your objective is to analyze the dump, identify any indications of the attack, and track down its source. Now that our lab is fully loaded, let's begin with the readme.txt file. It outlines the lab's objective, which states, identify and document the malicious activities performed by the OceanLotus threat actor within the memory dump, utilizing tools such as MemProcFS, PA-bear, olevba, and others. Next, it mentions that we have a single artifact within the artifacts folder, a memory image to be analyzed using MemProcFS. As for the tools at our disposal, we have MemProcFS, which is a memory analysis tool. We have PA-bear, which is a portable executable file analysis tool. We also have olevba, which is a tool for analyzing OLA files and VBA macros. And finally, we have strings, which is a tool for extracting text strings from files. Additionally, it mentions an online Visual Basic debugging tool that we may need. Alright, let's start by reading the first question, which says, it is crucial to identify the primary process responsible for managing email servers to understand the entry point of a breach. What is the process ID, or PID for short, of the main process that handles email server operations? First, I opened a terminal within the directory where MemProcFS is located. I used the -device parameter to specify the path to our memory image. Next, I activated forensic mode by adding the -forensic flag. Forensic mode performs a comprehensive memory analysis on the provided image. But before we continue, let's discuss MemProcFS. MemProcFS is a virtual file system that exposes the physical memory of a target system as files and directories, enabling users to browse and investigate memory using standard file system tools. Anyway, we can see that MemProcFS has finished analyzing and mounting the memory image, and we can access the file system that MemProcFS has mounted. To find the PID of the email server process, we will navigate to the folder labeled name. This folder contains subfolders for each process that was running on the system. And as we sift through these subfolders, we come across one labeled as hmailserver.exe with a PID of 3584. That should be the answer to our first question. On to the second question. To trace the origin of a spear-phishing attack, you need to know who the attacker is impersonating. What is the email address that the attacker used to spoof when they sent out phishing emails? First, we navigate into the hmailserver folder. In there, we see various files and subdirectories related to this specific process. One folder that catches our eye is the mini-dump folder. This contains a process dump that is generally used for debugging. However, in our case, we will use that process dump in a very different way and with an even more powerful tool than a debugger. a tool that only expert reverse engineers can wield, and only few have mastered. It is feared by all cyber criminals. It is loved by many digital forensics experts. Yes, I am talking about that tool, strings.exe. We are going to run strings against the minidump file and save the output to a text file for easier analysis. I utilized the strings command with the -n option to set a minimum string length. This approach reduces the noise in the output, making it easier to work with. Before diving further into the lab, let's first understand email headers. This is important because we will need to identify the sender's email address based on the email headers in the next step. Email headers are metadata that help mail servers and email clients authenticate, deliver, and track mail messages by containing information about the sender, recipient, route, and even timestamp. The image shows a simple email header with a lot of metadata. We're interested in the sender's email address, which will be in the from header. So we will search for occurrences of the from keyword in the memory dump to find it. Now, opening the string dump of the email server process, the odds are high that this dump will contain email information that is still stored in memory. And since emails contain headers, as we have already explained, we can use the keyword from to search for the sender's email address. Going through the results, we notice the email address team@cyberdefenders.org appearing multiple times. Moreover, these occurrences seem to be associated with the same suspicious password reset email. And based on this evidence, we can reasonably conclude that team@cyberdefenders.org is the spoofed email that the attacker has been using. Moving on to question number 3. Understanding the attack's impact on individual users can help in mitigating risks. What is the email address of the user who was deceived into opening the malicious phishing email? This one was a bit tricky. I wasn't initially sure what to search for or where to look at. So I began by examining the active processes on the system. This can be found by navigating into the sys directory, then the proc directory, and finally, we will see the proc.txt file, which contains a list of system processes. One thing that stood out in that file was the username Atiyah, which appeared as the user who initiated some of these processes. Notably, there were multiple Firefox processes listed, so that seemed like a promising place to start our investigation. My next move was to head over to the names folder to find the parent Firefox process. It had a PID of 3144. Inside that processes folder, I opted to employ the same technique we used for the previous question, running strings on the Firefox processes minidump and saving the output to a text file. With the string dump in hand, I remembered that the potential victim's username was Atiya. So I started by searching for an email address with that username. I could find one result which looked like the title of an Outlook email tab open in Firefox. And bingo, that revealed the victim's email address. Alright, let's tackle question number 4. Accessing the compromised credentials can provide insights into the attacker's movements within the network. What password is associated with the user's email address identified in the previous question? My initial approach was to go through the strings dump of the Firefox process we had already extracted. I figured that if the password was transmitted through a form, then a logical way to locate it would be to look for encoded form data in the mini dump. Form data are usually formatted in a key value pairs separated by the ampersand symbol, with each key and value joined by an equal sign. This search strategy produced 8 results. And among these, one particularly stood out because it contained the form data payload of the request, which fortunately included the victim's password. Moving on to question number 5. Uncovering the attacker's IP address is pivotal in tracing the attack's origin. What is the IP address from which the phishing emails were sent? In question 2, we identified the attacker's spoofed email address from the email headers. Therefore, we can revisit the HMail server string dump to find the attacker's email address and look at the full context of the email headers. One header of interest is received, which includes the host name and IP address of the sender. This IP is the flag that we are looking for. Now, on to question number 6. Identifying unauthorized software installations can reveal the attacker's tools and methods. What is the program name that the attacker installed on the system? Before diving further into addressing this question, let's take a moment to discuss the forensic mode of MemProcFS, because we will be using this in our next step. Forensic mode is a feature within the MemProcFS forensic subsystem designed for comprehensive batch-oriented analysis of memory dumps. It is not enabled by default, but it can be activated through the command line parameter -forensic, as we initiated at the start of the lab. When forensic mode is enabled, MemProcFS reads the complete memory dump sequentially in one pass and performs multiple analysis tasks in parallel. It can generate timelines for registry activity, process activity, file activity, and much more. Going back to our question, our goal is to find the name of a program installed by the attacker. A common method to identify installed applications is by checking the registry key associated with the uninstall menu. In MemProcFS, this can be accomplished through forensic mode. By navigating to the forensic folder, you will find a subfolder named Timeline. This folder contains timelines for various artifacts extracted from the memory image. We are particularly interested in the registry timeline, so we will open its file and search for the string uninstall. The search brings up several results, but the first one, which is also the most recent, reveals an entry for 7-zip. This is the clue we have been looking for, indicating that 7-zip is the program installed by the attacker. For question 7, it says, Analyzing transferred files can shed light on the attacker's intent and the scope of the breach. What is the name of the RAR file that the attacker moved onto the compromised machine? I tackled this question using two different approaches. The first method is somewhat indirect and blind. I went to the forensic folder, and from there, I entered the files folder. This folder contains a file system of the target system, reconstructed from the memory image. I performed a search using a wildcard followed by the rar extension, which led me to a file name todo.rar. The second approach, which is more precise, involves inspecting the file handles associated with the 7z process. To do this, I navigated to the name folder, located the 7z process, and then accessed the handles folder. Inside, there's a file named handles.txt. A search for the .rar extension within this file also points to the todo.rar file, confirming our findings from the first approach. So let's submit our flag. Question 8 says, decoding obfuscated VBA code is key to identifying IOCs or indicators of compromise and developing custom detection rules. What is the value of the DSC variable in the extracted macro? Given the mention of a doc file, it seemed logical to start by extracting the contents of the todo.rar file that we have identified in the previous question. So, after copying the archive to the desktop and extracting it using 7zip, we can see that the archive produced one file with some errors. Such errors frequently occur with memory forensic tools due to the volatile nature of system memory, often resulting from incomplete or corrupted data in memory. I will ignore the errors and navigate to our extracted folder. I found the doc file in question. To analyze any embedded VBA macros within this doc file, I used the olevba tool. Running it with the doc file as its argument. The analysis flagged several suspicious activities, including file manipulation, code execution, and signs of obfuscation. To get a clearer picture, I copied the macro code into a text editor. I then searched for the DSC variable that was in our question. Initially, the variable appeared to be assigned to an obfuscated string. To tackle this, I turned back to olevba. This time, I used the -- reveal option, which is designed to decode string obfuscation. After replacing the original code with the newly decoded version, I searched again for the DSC variable, but this time its value was clear: Microsoft Outlook Sync. With this information, we are ready to claim our points for this question. Question number 9 says, file manipulation is a common tactic used by attackers to evade detection. After the macro in the doc file dropped the malicious file, What was the new name given to the file after renaming? In the VBA code we are currently examining, there are two file copy operations. However, it seems to use two variables that build the string in parts, which is another way of obfuscating the function arguments. To make sense of these string arguments, one approach could be to directly replace each variable with its assigned value. Another strategy might be to debug the code, setting breakpoints at variables we are interested in to look at their values at runtime. However, I opted for an even lazier solution by asking ChatGPT to clean up the code for me. The clarified code was much easier to understand, and it revealed that a file, initially named guest.bmp, was renamed to background.dll. But hey, don't go throwing your sensitive corporate data at language models like ChatGPT. It's generally discouraged because you lose control over where your data ends up, and there are multiple ways it could be compromised, such as in the event of a breach. Anyway, let's hop on to question number 10. Establishing persistence is a key objective for attackers to maintain access. What is the name of the scheduled task created by the macro for achieving persistence? To find the scheduled tasks in this memory image, we will go to the forensic folder and then to the timeline folder. This folder contains different timelines with different events, including the tasks timeline, which is of particular interest to us. Going through the logs in this timeline file, it becomes evident from the first couple lines that a scheduled task was created, which is named WinRAR update. This immediately raises suspicion, as the task is set to execute run-dll32 on an object, which is likely an object related to the background.dll file that we previously identified as being dropped by the VBA script that we analyzed. Consequently, the answer to question 10 is the name of this scheduled task, which is WinRAR update. Question 11 says, identifying process injection is critical in understanding how the attacker evades detection. In the case of the background.dll, what is the memory address of the injected DLL? To pinpoint the address of the injected payload, we leverage the MemProcFS find evil module. This module employs a list of predefined Yara rules designed to detect signs of malicious activities, including code injection, which is precisely what we are investigating in this instance. We navigate to the forensic directory and locate the findEvil folder. Inside the findEvil.txt file, the very first line reveals that the run-dll32 process has injected code into the address hex C70000. This address is the flag we have been searching for. So let's submit that. Question number 12 says, understanding the communication channels used by the attacker is vital for preventing data exfiltration. What is the URL utilized by the backdoor to exfiltrate data from the compromised system? I started by trying to find the background.dll file. So I started by going into the forensic folder, then the files folder, which, as we have already explained, contains a recovered file system of the target, reconstructed from the memory image that we have. So within that folder, I searched for the file background.dll. I used a wildcard, which got us our file. Having obtained the DLL file, I opened a new terminal window in the strings folder. To extract the data, I ran the strings command on the DLL and filtered the output using the select string PowerShare commandlet to search specifically for the string HTTP. This revealed a URL that seems suspicious, and given the context, this is likely the very URL employed by the backdoor for data exfiltration, which is the answer that we seek for this question. And by this, we have finished solving the lab. So, thanks for watching.